accordingly. So from the back, if you want to start, yeah.
Graduate in sports and physical education. Currently for looking masters in sports psychology.
Okay.
That's like getting
okay.
My name is Muhammad. I'm from EducationUSA. I basically the papers of my third semester in international relations, and now I'm in Boston. So I'm now I'm trying to get the US to get the scholarships and other things so I can get it myself.
Okay.
My name is Mohammed Ahmed. I have graduated from UT Technical and my graduation is in civil engineering. Currently, I am exploring my options.
Okay, sounds good.
I was Mohammed. I have done a good in chemistry from Punjab University in 2020. I also have looking chips for PhD.
Okay, thank you. You?
My name is Daud Nosham.
Okay. Would we be able to get introductions online?
I just want to make sure that the women get half there. Because we'll have the notes for you.
Okay.
Right. So for the students on the if you can just ask them because I'll give us time.
Okay. Can you, for all the students online, can you do your introductions one by one, just so I can get a sense of the background of all students?
But this is the webinar.
Yeah, sure. Okay, if you can leave it in chat box. And then I will introduce myself so we can connect.
Another chat box. Dealing for PhD in computer science. I have a disciplinary background in computer sciences, cybersecurity, data, and AI.
Okay. Yeah, we can wait a few minutes for others to introduce as well. Yeah, there's a chat.
30 between bachelor's in electronics and data. C.
Okay. Okay.
There are 8 participants.
Okay. If anyone else want to introduce themselves, you can still post in chat. I will read that. But I just wanted to get a sense of how many engineers are there. I'm an engineer, so but it's not just focused on engineers. So I will still talk about like other like majors as well. So this is more generic presentation, and the purpose of the presentation is I will tell you like all the requirements to apply for like universities in USA to pursue master's or PhD studies. but I will talk through all the steps. But the intent of today's session is more to like get to talk to you and then answer your questions and like if you have more specific questions. So yeah, I will introduce myself and then we'll get started further. So I did my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering in 2017, and I'm a graduate of UT Lahore. And I know there is one graduate from UT Lahore. So there's one from NUST Mechatronics Engineering and another from UT Tesla, right? So yeah, so I did mechanical engineering, graduated in 2017, and I worked right here in former Christian College for 4 years as operation maintenance engineer, and then also as mechanical engineer, operation and projects. So this new campus center building right over there, that's where I worked on like on construction projects. So then I got very interested in like the application of mechanical engineering in buildings, so which is heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. So that was the motivation for like pursuing like further studies. The reason was that I was like working here and I felt like I have a more generic mechanical engineering degree rather than just focused on building systems. So what I'm telling you is what you should have in mind. How should you develop your focus for a PhD study as well? That's one way I did it, but you can have your own reasons as well. So for me, it was that I wanted to learn more about mechanical systems in buildings. So that's why I applied for like initially for mechanical engineering programs in like master and PhD programs in like US, but I actually got rejected from a lot of mechanical engineering programs, and later figured out that the programs I was applying to, they were not really relevant to what I wanted to do, because most of the time, what I wanted to do was offered in architectural engineering program, and I thought that my profile is not it wasn't very good enough. So, anyways, but I thought it has to do with my profile, but it wasn't. I was like struggling a lot and trying to revising materials and improve those materials every time. But later, I figured that mechanical engineering is very vast, and if I apply to mechanical engineering, it's more about systems and everything. But what I wanted to do was being offered in architectural engineering program, and that's when I switched and after figuring it out, and then applied to architectural engineering program at University of Nebraska, and I will talk about the process, how I did it. So then yeah, I approached the professor, I emailed that professor and then got a reply in like 15 minutes because that was a good alignment. And usually professors are interested if you have very well aligned research interest rather than just your GPA or how good your statement of purpose is, or although statement of purpose is a very important part of your application. And I will talk about all these aspects now. So then I got selected into a direct PhD program in architectural engineering after my bachelor's degree. On the way, I got my master's degree in 2024, and then my PhD degree in 25. So along the way, I worked with like the university as the research assistant and teaching assistant. That's what PhD students do to get all the funding you need. So, and then currently I'm working with the US National Research Laboratory as a research participant. So there are two sections of my presentation. In the first section, I will talk about more focused on like program search and application. And then in the second section, I will talk more about funding. And I'll try to stop in between to get your questions. And after I'm done with the presentation, then I can also stay on. Yeah, I put there like 3 hours there, but I'm hoping to finish it much earlier and stay on with you to discuss individually with you if you have any specific questions and answer those questions for you. So, so first thing I will discuss is program search, then application requirements and process. How would you prepare your documents? Talk a little more about statement of purpose, and then finally recommendation letters, which are an important part of your application as well. So the first question is, which program should I apply to? Does it have to be the same as my undergraduate degree? How to know if it's the right program for me? How to find a prospective supervisor? does the university ranking matter? These are some very common questions I've gotten from so many students, and these are very basic questions, but their answers are a little deeper. So I have tried to answer the very first one through my background, that which program should I apply to? This is a very good question, very important question. You need to ask yourself that which program you need to apply to, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the same program you did your bachelor's in. In Pakistan, it is commonly very frowned upon to change your majors. A lot of people would say that you did mechanical engineering and then you did architectural engineering. But in US, it's actually considered very good. And you need to have the right motivation. You need to know what you are doing. And then you need to pursue that kind of program. So the name of the degree is not important. Rather, what's important is how much alignment there is in your master's or PhD program with your previous holistic background, not just your degree. So, for example, I did my degree in mechanical engineering initially, and I was very much interested in like designing of cars, which most of the students who do mechanical engineering are. So I wanted to like pursue this thermal side, engine designing side, and I actually got my first job here as a generator engineer in former Christian College, and worked here for some time, and then also trying to pursue opportunities in Europe as well to like get on the engine design side. But somehow I got more experience along the way in the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. So although they both are offered under mechanical engineering program, but you need to know your focus. For me, my experience helped me to develop that focus, that what I actually want to do, because doing an engineering degree, bachelor's degree is much different from doing a master's or a PhD. Because in a bachelor's degree, you have much diverse courses, and they want to teach you algebra, mathematics, advanced algebra, numerical methods, or so many other things, which is meant to broaden your horizon first. And once you get that all that breadth, you need to focus on the one area and then get on top of that. So with a master's degree, you really have to be, even in US, if you have a master's degree, that really means that you're a master of your subject. So if you want to be a master, if you can't be a master of everything in your whole domain, you have to specialize in a certain area. So the question you need to ask yourself is, which area you want to choose in the very first go. So that answer can come through. There is one way how I figured out that answer. I thought I had that answer, but because there are certain courses I liked in my bachelor's degree, which I wanted to do. But the second prong to that is that you may not have opportunity to do that right away in Pakistan. So you need to also think about where the opportunity is, what you want to do, what your experience is, and what you like. Oftentimes, what students do is they think that this area is very famous, and if I get into this area, there are a lot of scholarships and everything. But once you get into the master's program or a PhD program, especially for PhD program, it's a very difficult thing. The reason is that you have to spend 5 years of your life into that PhD program, and oftentimes you don't think that. In US, a lot of students drop out of the PhD programs just because they don't have good relations with their advisor. Sometimes they just don't like the major at all because the research area doesn't interest them. So I think being able to get to that part, to be able to get that admission in US, that's I think is the most important part when you are here, but not when you are over there in US. When you reach over there, the most important part is what kind of relations you have with your advisor, what kind of the lab culture that university has. Are you able to survive that 5 year long PhD or not? Sometimes it could be 4 years, a little less. I did my PhD in 4 years, but for some people it could be up to 7 years as well. So if you are committing that long after your bachelor's degree, because you have already gotten your bachelor's degree 4 years of your life, and after you are done with your bachelor's, you're committing 4 to 5 years into a master's or PhD, 2 years in a master's, 3, 4, 5 years in PhD. So that's a long commitment. So you need to be very sure what you really want to do and what area you want to focus on. So the number one method is, if you don't have experience, then the how you can figure out what your interest is. So usually the first thing that comes to mind is that there must be some courses related to your major area you might have liked during the bachelor's degree, or usually likeness is proportional to the grades as well. So if you got a good grade in certain courses, then there is a high possibility you might have liked those courses anyways, or you are good at that naturally. So one way to do that is to select that kind of area and then focus on it a bit more. And then I will talk a little more on like next step. So I'll try to answer the first two questions. Which program should I apply to? That has to come from your interest. Don't try to like go to a PhD program or a master's program just because you are able to get the admission in that area. You'll be stuck, I guarantee you. And you will hate those 5 years of your life. Because right now, if you want to get to US, that's very charming, but once you get there, it's very difficult to survive. It's not an easy go. So how to find a prospective supervisor? So once you have done that step one is figuring out which area you actually like. Once you have figured out that this is the area I want to pursue, then what I have done in my PhD search, you go to different websites of the university. What you can do is get a list of universities. US has like I think 4,000 universities in US. So at that time, there was another scholarship by HEC, and they had already compiled a list of universities, maybe 600, 800. And what I would do is open up main website of that university, go to the academic section, and try to see what programs they offer. And then you need to think about that. I'm a mechanical engineer. I don't only want to look at mechanical engineering programs. I need to figure out where else that could be offered. So you need to also figure out, if you are studying biological sciences, you may also have some overlap with behavioral sciences or some other kind of like related major. I'm just giving you an example. So if you're a doctor or like other profession, then medical related profession, you could be like having an overlap, or you would have done some little research at a bachelor's level, maybe in pathology or immunology or something like that. So you need to figure out that where that research overlap is. So first step of that search is trying to go to the academics tab and find out what majors are being offered in that university. Find out the first major which you have already in your bachelor's degree, and also find out the relevant majors. And then go to those major websites and then find out the faculty profiles. There's always a tab in all US universities that these are the faculty in our university. Go to the faculty tab and try to scroll through profiles of all the professors one by one and spend some time on it. In the very first search, you'll see that there are some professors you can outright say that these are not relevant to us. And maybe if I have gone to like first university, and then you find out 3 professors who might have some overlap with your research, just maybe approach one. And then try to find out one professor who has the most relevant research area. But before approaching, you also need to open up his individual web page. And then all universities have their individual web page for all professors. So, and go to the research tab and see what kind of research they have done. I'm focusing on research because all the applicants are masters and PhD applicants, all of you are. So that's all you will be doing if you are going into a PhD or master's. So you go to that research profile and see what research they have done recently. Some professors have done some different research from their exact major or exact area in the recent years or in the past 10 years. So it's also important to see what they have done in the 5 years, what they have done in 10 years, and then see whether, because this is a professor you have already shortlisted who may be like having some alignment with you. After seeing those research pages or recent papers, then you need to make a decision whether you should approach this professor or not. A lot of students, what they do is they go to faculty profiles, blindly email all the professors. None of them will be accepting you. all professors have done PhDs like 10 years, 20 years ago, most of the time, unless the professor is very new. Even if the professor has just graduated and come to the university as an assistant professor, he has still done the PhD, has been through that time before you are even getting into that PhD program. So he's an expert in his domain. In US, if you have a PhD, you're really, really an expert in your domain. So don't try to trick them. So you won't be able to, because once you like send a generic email to all those professors, what they do is, so let me talk a little about admission process and then come back to this point as well. So the admission process looks like it, that you send an application to the university, you have submitted that, and then uh, your admission is not decided by one professor. In US, they have separate admissions department. Usually they call it graduate studies. So your application goes to graduate studies, and there is a committee. So what graduate studies does is they have their own directors and admissions person who do initial shortlisting based on whether you have submitted all application materials, whether you really qualify for all the minimum requirements listed on the application website. Once they do that initial check, they collect all those applications and send that to the respective departments, all the departments. So once you pass that eligibility check, then your application come to the faculty committees, not to your professor. So then the committee sits and then they make a decision on which ones are the top applicants. They might have 50 applicants for one position or 100 applicants for one position. So once your profile is there, if you have already approached the professor who is sitting on that committee, then that professor will just tell them that this is my student, I want to select. So you have very good chances if you already have connected to that professor before applying. Some universities might not let you do that, but majority universities I know of, they don't have anything against connecting to a professor before even applying to the university. So I would highly encourage you to connect to the professor first and then submit your application. And then once that application goes there, and then it's not really about the best candidate. Then it's about how important is your research match, how well aligned is your research match with that professor. On basis of that, the professor will tell them, no, I want to select this student. So if you have already that professor, then you might be selected right away. So then the next question is, does the university ranking matter? It does not. In US, unless you are in very, very top 10, 20 universities, that might be a little bit different feeling for yourself, but it does not matter. I'm working at a national research laboratory. There are 4,000 universities in US, only 17 national research laboratories, and I'm working at one of them. And I've not graduated from the top 20 universities. So in US, it does not matter whether you have graduated from the first one or 800th one. I feel they are very, very similar, especially for master's and PhD studies. It's not the university ranking that matter. It's the alignment of interest with professor. And also, there could be a university which is ranked 10th in the world, but may have a department where you want to get into. That department might be at 1,000 ranking. So it's the ranking of that department that matters. And you might not be able to get that ranking right away, but you might need to explore a little bit more on the research output of the department you want to get into. Or an easy way to get to know the department is to get to know the profile of that professor and find out whether you will be able to, how actively they are publishing. And also, even more importantly, I would very much emphasize that the most important part is how well can you get along with that professor? Because you will be staying with that professor for 5 years. And I have seen so many relationships with faculty and students going bad, and students leaving the programs and not being able to do that. So this is really, really the most important part. So university ranking, I would say it does not matter much. So you need to make sure that your program which you want to pursue is very well aligned and then you are able to get into that program and be able to continue into that research. And once I go to the statement of purpose part, I'll talk about some more things as well. So these are the usual requirements. You might already know these. So you need to fill out an application form. Then you need to have previous degrees and transcripts. If you are pursuing a master's degree, then you need to have a bachelor's degree completed. Oftentimes, you also can apply in the last year and tell them that this is the date of your graduation. Usually, what how this works is you need to have completed your degree before the start of the program. Sometimes they might relax a little bit on that as well, but that's very university specific. So, and for a PhD, you need to have at least a bachelor's degree. Some programs in some of the universities might require you to have both master's and PhD, but a lot of them may not require it. They would just say having bachelor's and master's degrees preferred or having bachelor's and master's degree required. But if you only have a bachelor's degree, you may still be able to get into a PhD, even if they require it. You just talk to the graduate chair of the department and explain your circumstances why you want to pursue a PhD instead of a master's directly. And if you are able to convince them that you have the right background and you have the research training that can demonstrate that you have been through that rigor, then you should be able to get into a PhD directly as well. And oftentimes, students end up doing a master's anyway. I have friends, multiple friends who have done a PhD degree directly and not even bothered to get a master's degree. You don't really need to, but if you have a PhD, then you're a PhD. Just like someone who has done like a bachelor's, master's, and PhD, or a bachelor's and PhD, that's equivalent. And US system treats it equivalently. Uh, I don't know how this is working out in Pakistan right now, but I think US degrees are so reputed enough that I don't think you should have a problem. I personally got into a direct PhD program and later decided to get a master's degree. I was not required to, but I have seen other students who have not done that. Um, then usually the GPA requirement is 3 GPA minimum. And some of the universities may relax on that as well, because this is a very frequently asked questions from students who have lower GPAs, and they are very much worried and trying to focus a lot on this part. Like me, I was one of them. Uh, and I was wrong to think that it's only the most focused for consideration point for universities. It is not. All these points I've written here, these are just the tick marks. That's why I've used the tick marks here, check marks. You just need to make sure that these could be checked. These are not really very like focused for like requirements that if you have 3.8 GPA, you can't get a PhD. This one has a 3.9 GPA. This is not a hard and fast rule. They might select someone from 2.9 GPA, but you need to have an overall consolidated good profile to be able to get selected into a PhD program. And the most important aspect of that is the research match. If you have a good research match and the professor is very interested that and thinks that you will be able to not only get into the program, because you'll get into the program if the professor thinks you are capable enough. But the latter part, which is much more important, is they try to see that you will be able to complete the program. Because PhD projects are long projects. They're not a 1-2 year project. You need to spend like 4 or 5 up to even 7 years project on that project. So what they're looking for is the commitment, consistency, and that rigor that you will be able to complete that project. Next is standardized testing scores. When I did my GRE, I had a 305 in GRE. Not that graceful, but it was like, I think maybe 300 might be the bare minimum you will be able to. There might be some examples who, for students, might have like gotten into a PhD or master's with even with a little level test score as well. But I think 300 should be like at least the bare minimum to keep you in the game. And usually universities are not very focused on GRE either. After COVID, some of the universities have also like relaxed this requirement, but maybe after 2 years or so, they started putting this requirement again. So just what I'm trying to focus on is just try to like get to these check marks and not really like stress too much on it. And then statement of purpose. This is, I think, the most important part of your application, because this is an essay that tells a story, that tells who you are, what you want to do, how will you do it, and you need to elaborate your whole personality within that. So that one I'll emphasize a lot more, and then recommendation letters as well. A very common question asked by so many students to me is uh, different students will connect to me and try to ask me, uh, I have done everything else. I'm just working on my research proposal to apply to the US. So I keep telling them, why are you working on a research proposal? It's not a requirement in US admission process for most of the universities. Don't stress yourself with things you don't even need. I know there are some programs which might focus on research proposals or require you, really require you in a writing sample as well, or maybe a research publication at a bachelor level. Usually in US, it's not a general expectation that you provide a research proposal. I know in Europe that might be the case because they expect you to have finished your master's degree already when you get into the program. But in US, they let you do that preparation while you're in the PhD program. PhD is not meant to hire researchers. They are meant to hire students and transform them into researchers. So if they are already expecting a research proposal or research papers, then they are hiring researchers already. They are not really hiring students who are getting transformed into a researcher. So in some cases that may be requirement. And for those students whose major is everywhere that you need to have research proposal, then you will really need to. But for I think in 90% of the cases, I don't think it's required. So don't stress yourself with that. Similarly, the last point, research publications, they are also optional. You don't need to have research publication. So for me, I had a 2.9 GPA, and I asked this question so many times whether I will be able to get into a master's program. And I got my like advising from USC FPA as well. So I was told that it's a little on the like marginal side, on the lower side. Some universities did like outright tell me that we cannot accept your application having lower than 3 GPA. But you shouldn't really like worry about that because there are 4,000 universities. You need to broaden your horizons and focus on other universities which who will maybe a little flexible. Most of the universities write this that you need 3 GPA. But if you want to ask them if you have a low GPA, just connect with them and tell them that I have this profile and tell a little bit more. And usually you need to contact the graduate chair. So once you contact the graduate chair, tell them your circumstances, then they may be able to relax a little bit. Not maybe they might not relax if you have a 1.9 or 2, but if it's a little bit, then they should be. And I have actually, when I was struggling to really get a scholarship, I would go online and search if there is someone who has done it, so I may have a reference. And I found a student who had posted his story online, and he had a 2.7 GPA and got into a PhD directly with a bachelor's degree, which is what I was trying to do, and I did it as well. So if there is anyone, I want to ask your name, but you can do it as well. So, yeah, I think that's not on this. I'll go to the next slide. So I think this is not very important part of the like for today's presentation, but you should just have it in mind that you need to do these steps as well. Get attestations from HEC to be able to like because universities will require you to have attested degrees, and then getting your test scores ready and sending score reports, because for sending a report every time, once you do GRE, you may be able to get some free reports, but then you may have to pay for it. And then writing a statement of purpose in time. This is an important step. This is not a short step. You can't write a statement of purpose in a week. If you do, you might not get selected. I don't think so, because this is a very important. This is your whole life story, and you need to really put effort into that to be able to like explain what your conditions are and what you want to do. So once you write your statement of purpose, this should be the first step. Just give me. This should be your first step, and then you should be able to write the draft email as well from the statement of purpose to contact the professor. I'll get your question and then continue.
I have tested my bachelor's degree from ETC and do I still need my intermediate and matriculate degrees to be tested?
Uh, I don't think that MUFA is required for US. Yeah. The only thing I was required to do was get these attestation for my bachelor's degree or higher degrees, whatever you have, bachelor's or higher degrees from HEC. That's all my university has required of me. Yeah. For MUFA and other attestations, I think other countries than other than US, they may require that. But this is a more specific question you need to ask a university beforehand and try to get that done earlier. But my idea is that most US universities would just ask you HEC attestation and nothing else.
About the
GRE? Okay, I will talk about that. Yeah, I was expecting that some of you already have some idea, but that's fine. I'm planning to talk about that a little bit. So yeah, if you have, I'll stop here for a few minutes and then get your questions first. Yeah. You don't need attestations for applying. For applying, you only need your degree to be awarded, and even if your degree is not awarded, you may submit like provisional certificate or some certificate like that declares that you will get your degree by this time, and you need to coordinate with your university on that, and then submit an application. Yeah, but once you submit all your materials, they will review your application, finalize it. Once you will get an offer letter, then they'll tell you that we need the attested copies of these. And what I did is usually that's a sealed envelope. You usually go to the university registrar and then tell them that I need these attestations. And then what they do is they will attest those and then they will seal it themselves. And then there could be two ways you can do it. Sometimes you can provide the address of that university to your university, and they can send it for you. Sometimes another thing you can do is you can get that sealed into an envelope, and you register a stamp on that, and so it's sealed. You don't open it then, and then you parcel it yourself. I did the latter one, so but you can do it either way. Yeah. More questions. GRE is compulsory for a lot of majors in a lot of universities, but not necessarily in all majors and all universities. But I would still suggest try to not bypass GRE. The reason is that there is a very big sample of universities you can get into if you have GRE. If you don't have GRE, you might have this sample to get your PhD. And usually I have seen people coming to US without a GRE, but that was a different time frame. And even if out of that time frame, that COVID time frame, some sources have been able to do that as well. But usually, you have more chances to get into a university if you have a good GRE or at least have done a GRE, and then TOEFL as well. Because in a lot of US universities, TOEFL is the preferred test. But right now, even when I applied, all of the universities will accept IELTS as well. So they might not write it on their website right away, but once you contact them and tell them I've done IELTS, so they know what is the equivalence and they'll accept your IELTS score. Yes, please. IELTS, yes. For GRE, you need to check your university website. You'll do the same search process I've outlined. You go to university, find out like which program you want to apply, and these programs may have differing requirements from each other. So you need to go read that, and if GRE is required, which is the case in maybe 90% of the cases. So I would highly encourage before you start your process. So what I did is I did my GRE very first. First step was doing GRE, and then second step, GRE is valid for longer duration. So I did that GRE as the first step. I don't know if they have changed it now or not, but when I did it, I did also a computer-based test as well. It was 5 years validity at that time. I think it's still the same. But for IELTS or TOEFL, I think validity is much smaller. For IELTS, it's 2 years. So make sure you do your GRE first, so you are safe on that way, and then do I have had 1 month in between. Like I did my GRE and then prepared for IELTS in a week or so, and don't over prepare for IELTS either, because it's the kind of test that elaborates your English skills, what you have gained throughout your life, not what you could gain in a week or 2 weeks or 1 month. What you need to learn when if you do IELTS, I don't know if you what you need to learn when you do IELTS is how to attempt the test, not really learn English to do the IELTS. You have learned English your whole life. So you can't, I don't think you can change that right now with just a test. What you need to learn is how to manage your time during the test. I think that's the most critical part doing the English proficiency test as well. Because you have when you're doing a listening test, you're listening something and trying to answer those questions as well. So this is more like a how good of a connection you have with your listening and like doing everything and interpreting everything. And a lot of students, what they do is like they if they miss one sentence, they are unable to catch up with that listening part. Similarly, with speaking, you don't really need to stop somewhere if you're doing a speaking test. You need to make sure you are using higher level of vocabulary and then uh, try to reach the time frame that is required during the speaking test if you are speaking for 2 minutes or so. So you need to get all this understanding about the test itself, not really improve your English during that time. So
The proficiency test is it relevant that either you are lying or speaking to?
they don't care. They don't know if you're speaking truth or lying, and it's not a matter of lying or speaking. It's a matter of elaborating whether you can speak proficiently or not. So if you're telling them that I I have a car and it's green colored and I came in that car in the scorching heat of summer, they will notice that you use the high form of vocabulary, that scorching heat of summer. You won't just say in very heated weather. So you need to tell them it doesn't matter whether you have a car or not. So yeah, so it's not about like your personal circumstances whether you have a car or not. It's about what you are trying to elaborate with your vocabulary. So that's more important. Yeah. Let me get some a little bit of water and then yeah, I'll answer more questions as well. Yeah, this for today's session, I was hoping to just make it more interesting rather than just me presenting it. If you want to have some questions, I requested them for the in-process and attendees. If you want to have questions. Yeah, more questions. Then recommendation letters is also a very important part as well, because those recommendation letters should be able to supplement what you have been talking in your statement of purpose. Statement of purpose tells in statement of purpose you are basically why I'm trying to explain all these points is really to understand what's the purpose of these materials from the hiring point of view. The one person who's hiring or recruiting you, that should be able to get a sense of your personality, because they might interview you, but before even interviewing you, they should be able to know that you are like kind of promising them that I will come spend 4 or 5 years with you and work with you. So they need to make sure they know your personality. So that's a way to elaborate. So what purpose is recommendation letter service is that they supplement your statement of purpose. What you have said in your statement of purpose, I'm asking this person how do you know this person? And when I ask you, if you like tell me good things about that person, then not necessarily good things. These things should be very focused and should be able to like define that person, like very well defined, like traits of that person, which can convince me that yes, this person is also telling the truth as well about you. So these recommendation letters need to be very focused on what you really want to try to do and what you have already done in your past. If you have more questions, I can stop here for a minute and then I'll go to the next slide.
The state of purpose as well as mine. When I did my activity in 3 year diploma, so which is after that I moved my and I switched to mass communication. And if I switch my master degree in public administration in the state, so it would be I can say capital for me that you have changed your program in intermediate and then undergraduation, and then you are coming over here in master degree, all with the same program in some the public administration. It would be bad because
So your intermediate was engineering and that DAE, right?
yeah,
Okay, DAE, and then bachelor's degree in
mass communication.
mass communication, and then masters.
No, that would be that.
So you basically have just two things, right? Intermediate, they don't care about intermediate.
Okay.
When you apply for a master's program, they don't ask you intermediate certification. You're done. They don't care about it. You need to show your bachelor's degree only. That's where your real education starts.
Yes.
Other high school is just a preparation of that education. So you just need to explain your what you have done in your bachelor's degree and they use that. Yeah. They don't care. Yes.
Most of the professors give us a generic recommendation letter. How can we improve that letter? Like we have to write it ourselves, like most of the teachers from UAT. They have their sample pattern, they just find that.
Yeah, I have very good answers, but I will stop wait on this question because I have next slides. I'm just focused on that. So I will answer your questions, and if I don't, ask me again. Okay. So I'll go to the statement of purpose part. This is the most important part, just to let you know. So buckle up. So I have like I think about 15 questions you need to answer in your statement of purpose. So if you can answer those 15 questions for me and write those down, not right now, I'm just saying that if you can write all answers for these questions, you will have the very first draft for your statement of purpose, a ready draft. So what I have done in the past for students who have connected with me and wanted to ask like questions about how to make a statement of purpose, I just sent these questions to them and told them to answer each question in one paragraph, one small paragraph, and then make sections of that. And then once they send me the first draft, I remove all these questions and then make it, send them again and tell them to just make it cohere so that each paragraph connects with each other through chains which are interconnected chains. And then you should have a very good statement. So very first question is who you are, what is your academic background, and and why did you choose what you are doing? So you need to answer that. So and I will try to answer these questions just as a sample for you as well. So the first thing is you most of the students what they do is I have loved engineering or sciences from very childhood and I've loved toys or refrigerators and stuff like that. You should not do that. Don't do that. They don't care because this is just a clutter. This is a PhD application. This is not an application for high school. So there could be, I'm not listed, but there could be one specific instance from your at least maybe high school or somewhere where you did a project or you designed something or you made a poster and presented it. These are the things you should include, but these should be very specific, not from your childhood memories. Rather, these should be more specifically focused on your educational career. So what is your academic background? Start with your degree, or maybe talk a little bit about your high school in 1-2 sentences, no more than that, not a paragraph. So 1-2 sentences on that, who you are, and then start with your bachelor's degree. Why did you choose your bachelor's degree? If you did engineering, if you did commerce, whatever you have done. So just talk about what motivated you to do that. in 1 or 2 sentences, not more than that. And then what you have done during your bachelor's degree, then kind of projects you have done, what kind of coursework you did. You can't list all courses. If you have done 40 courses, you can't list that. But you can tell them that I really like internal combustion engines, or I like this one, or and specifically talk about what you did in that course and the kind of projects you did there. And once you talk about that, that's enough for the first question. And why did you choose what you're doing? There should be a sentence on that. 3, 4 lines on this one. And how did you get there? Talk a little bit about your prior journey. What motivated you to pursue that? These are a little bit interconnected questions. And then once you've talked about your background, what you have done previously, then you tell them what specific area you are interested in. And I gave you example on that, that can come through what coursework you have done. If you have done a certain, like taken certain courses which have really interested you, maybe it's like industrial electronics, and you have liked the algebra related to industrial electronics and designed a circuit or something like that. Make it specific, not just tell them that I really like electronics and liked it from my childhood. My father is an electronics engineer. These are not the things that have any weightage. Because the reason is that a lot of time I tell students whenever I review statement of purpose, I ask them this, I tell them to ask themselves this question. Can a person, for example, if I'm a mechanical engineer, can a person who has not done mechanical engineering, can that person write that question, that sentence? That is something you should ask yourself. A person who has just done a metric, he can also write that. I've loved like doing mechanical engineering. I've loved the cars and engines and everything. But he cannot write that I've worked on new fuel blends for gasoline engines, which have high temperature resistance and provide good lubrication. So this is a very specific sentence only a mechanical engineer would write, not a someone who is in grade 10th would write. So you need to make sure your statement of purpose is higher quality worded.
Your unique experience.
Yes, because this is all about experience and what you have done in the past. And but try to focus on like which questions I'm at right now. Yes, I have a question here. Do you have any research or practical experience in that area? So if you have done just a bachelor's degree, just completed your bachelor's, you might not have any practical experience. So, but the practical experience doesn't necessarily have to be full-time experience. You could have some practical experience through your lab or through an internship during your bachelor's degree as well. A lot of times what I've noticed is in Pakistan, if you go for an internship, they don't treat you well. They won't give you in a small chair to sit. They'll just tell you to bring this and that and everything. So which is I understand. But you should be self-focused as well. And if you go for internships, then you should have some agenda that what you want to learn and be able to elaborate at least a paragraph out of that 1 2 month long internship that this is what I did. I did 2 internships when I was like an undergrad. I worked at Pell and then Nishat as well. So like manufacturing plant for like and assembling lines for refrigerators. And I did time study of those like refrigerators, which is more industrial engineering focused work. That time study is done to like optimize any like manufacturing process and try to reduce the time it takes from like just manufacturing to finish line. So this is an industrial engineering not necessarily a mechanical engineering program. But the thing is that they don't really need just examples from your own major. You should be able to elaborate that you are able to handle problems, difficulties in real life world. So you should be able to have some examples just to elaborate. So what specific area are you interested in? That to come from your coursework as well. That you did a certain project in lab that you did maybe a design of a cafeteria from a thermal perspective. I'm giving mechanical engineering example, but you should be able to create examples like this from your own subjects as well. And if you are not a science major, you could have some other kind of project. You did just a research on some like that could be qualitative research. You did a review on something, or you did like a project could be not necessarily a research project, but should be able to come up with examples of what you have done. Yes, your question.
Get skeptical between things. Like I have done my research work during graduation on adapted physical education, which is basically physical education of the special population. But I was also good in sports psychology as well. So at in this scenario, I usually become confused that I should go for sports psychology or for adapted physical education, which is basically physical education for the special population. So in this scenario, I will get confused during writing my statement.
Actually, that's a very good point, and I have faced that as well. I'm a mechanical engineer. I was initially interested in like internal combustion engines, designing engines, like going to the. There was some time ago, there was a scholarship in Hungary, and then I was very interested in like they had a world largest engine factory in Hungary. So, and I never knew that existed in Hungary. I would expect it to be in US or somewhere else. But anyways, US has so much other opportunities as well. But just giving you an example. So I was interested there, but I think I had lacked the practical experience to be able to do that. And I felt that I don't have that direction anymore. So you need to figure out that what you like more first. Secondly, then stay on that decision, because if you keep changing your recipes and make two recipes and apply for one thing at one place, another thing at another place, you might not get in either. The reason is because you will keep changing your directions. So what I would encourage you is that just focus on the one which interests you more. This might be a difficult decision to make if you like both, but I would still highly encourage to
I shared
go
the
in
problem
one.
with the professor. He tell me that it will be a higher chance to get scholarship in adapted physical education because most of the professors allot scholarship in that, and it's less chance in sports psychology.
Okay, then you can have other factors as well. This is another factor, fundability. If one of your proposed topic is not fundable, then you can't do that. So either there might be two options. Either you just leave that option, or you try to pursue that option in a place where that is fundable, or maybe just self-fund it if you can. Yeah, because this is an important consideration. If you can't fund it, then you can't do it. So just make other like maybe make a list of things, then compare those two options. And once you could do this comparison and try to come up with which suits you better, then don't get distracted by it again and again. Just choose one and stay alert. Because I've done this for so long time, and then I've just noticed that it distracts you. Yeah. More questions? Okay, I'll go further then. Okay, last point from this slide at least. Did you find a university department or professor in your area? How did you find that university lab? What do you think that university and lab? Why do you think that university or a lab is a good match for you? You need to. This is a three-part question. So first is, did you find a university or professor? And I've already explained how would you find the university and the professor. You can mention that I was looking for this kind of research area, and that's how I found you. What I did is I had approached a professor a long time ago at Rochester Institute of Technology in a sustainability PhD program, and I actually watched their YouTube video on like electronic waste management. And I just told them that I watched your video on e-waste management and read about your research, and they replied me right away. If you are able to connect with that professor, then they will reply you right away. And I've got some responses in 15 minutes or 20 minutes like that. And you just need to be able to be very focused. And I'll talk about like how to write that email to that professor, because that's very important. If you are like have this long email, you might not, the professor might just delete it. They might not read it. So you need to have a brief email, short email, but very focused, high quality words, high quality research experience, and just told everything in just maybe two or three small paragraphs. They will read it right away, reply you right away, and select you. So it's very important to have a very good like fancy email to be able to like convince a professor. And then you also need to explain why do you think university lab is a good match for you. I have a question online, but I don't think I can take a lot of questions right now. Uh, one of the one of the attendees has asked me online about what kind of file score is required and like further recommendations. So I don't think I can comment exactly on what I scores is required important for a certain major. For that, you will need to go to the university website and find out specifically what the university requires. In general, the IELTS score required by most of the US universities is the minimum is 6.5 bands overall. And for with that I score, you need to have that I score to be balanced. What I mean by balancing is that you need to have about 6.5 in all the sections. Not like that you have a 4.5 in one section and 9 in another section. They might not accept that IELTS because you might be very weak in one thing. If you can't listen to a lecture, have a very poor listening skill, but very good speaking skill, then you can't perform well. So you need to have like at least 6.5 bands in all of those and that should get you into hopefully in all any of the US university. So I need to correct that few and then I'll take more. So yeah, what I was going to say is why do you think the university and lab is a good match? A very common answer I've heard from a lot of students is that they try to tell you that your university is ranked 20th in the world. You have outclass research facilities, you have outclass buildings, you have such good sports facilities, good cafeterias, gyms. That's all I would say that's rubbish. Don't do that. Because all the universities, they already have their own marketing departments. They're marketing everything. And then which is great because they want to hire top talents and have good students in the university. But this is not something you need to tell them. What you need to tell them is how you found that professor, why you found that professor, why you want to do that degree. And this answer will come through why that university lab is a good match for you. Is the reason is that this is the area of specialization that is being offered at this XYZ department at this university. And you have a spectrometer which is not available elsewhere in the world. So that is the equipment you want to use or get trained on and do some kind of research which can only be done there and not somewhere else. So you need to find out that university resources and stuff like that. So that should be a focused answer that should give you a good reason to elaborate why you really want to choose that university or department to do a certain kind of research. What you to choose that specific area? And that is kind of is a blended answer from your background and also uh, uh, what your motivation is throughout, or your what your practical experience is, what your lab experience is, and then you kind of elaborate that. And once you explain that why you are interested in a specific area, then you also need to explain where this research will lead you, what you really want to do with your PhD or a research master's program. So a lot of students might not have that answer. If you just want to get a degree for the sake of degree and come back, then you might not be very good applicant for them. They might not want to hire you because they want to solve specific problems with the master's and PhD degrees. Even in a master's degree, you might have a 6 months to 1 year research component, and those researches are oftentimes very much collaborated with the industry or have or specific state level problems which they want to solve at the university level. So you need to have a clear mindset on where this research will lead you, which will show them your motivation to do the program. What skills would you bring? Because once you tell them that this is where I want to go, this is where I am, then you also need to explain that how will you reach there from here? Do you have a certain specific skill set you can do? And what I mean by skill set is right now there is a lot of need of data analysis, data analytics, and for all the researchers, you really study a lot of data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, AI, and everything. So these are the skill sets, and there are so many tools to conduct data analysis, like R language, Python programming. And if you are proficient in those skill sets, you need to highlight that I had used R programming to do data analysis on like energy analysis of different cities or like stuff like that. Or these can be even very small projects, but you need to be able to give very specific examples on what you exactly did and what kind of software you have used. And every field has their own specific like main level softwares, which could be used for modeling or data analysis and other stuff. So you need to be able to give those examples. So once you elaborate that, what skills you want to bring to that program, then you also have to explain what your short-term and long-term plans are. So the short-term plans are what you want to do right away after a degree, like in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And long-term plans are what do you want to do for your whole life, like 10 years, 15 years after you complete the PhD program. So short-term plan could be that you want to get into a research lab and solve a specific problem. And you don't really have to have very exact answer for that. You just need to have a good idea that this is the problem the world is facing, or a specific country is facing, or your country could be facing, Pakistan could be facing that problem. And you can tell them that Pakistan has this problem. I want to learn from this skill set here, and also want to like solve this problem in Pakistan or globally as well. So this would be like showing your short and long term plans. Long term plans is that you could be wanting to be a leader in education. You want to be a professor. A lot of PhDs who like finish the PhD program end up going in like professorship position. A lot of them also go into like research positions as well. So if you're a fully focused researcher, full-time researcher, then you're solving problems in the world anyways. And even as a professor, you have a research component. Maybe 30% of your time is just like allocated to research, 30 or 60% of your time. Sometimes universities also hire you as an assistant research professor. So research professors get their own funding. You need to like fund your proposals. That's a very different topic to discuss. But just to give you a little idea that there are different industry projects or state level projects, and they have specific problems they want to solve at a very high level, and they like make it an open competition and send a research grant invitation, and you apply for that grant for like maybe $1 million, and they award you that grant, and you hire a PhD student on that, and then that PhD student along with that professor like find an answer, does research and try to solve that problem, and that answer is given to the funding agency, and which could yield more dollars for them, But this is how it kind of works. So professor has a big part of that. That is his like time dedicated to research. Some professors do only research. They don't teach at all. So if you are a research assistant professor, you might be just doing research just like someone who's working at a national laboratory, uh, just 100% time dedicated to research. So you can explain that this is what I want to do and then solve a specific problem which you might think at this stage. Also, you can explain that this is what I want to do and formulate a research plan in your statement of purpose. Because research plan can be formulated in much detail in a research proposal, but that's not a requirement of the US admission process. So you can explain a research plan in a few paragraphs that doesn't need to be very, very specific, but you need to be able to show your ideas that this is what I want to do, this is the tool I will use, these are the facilities I will need, and this is what I will accomplish. So these 4 or 5 things you can explain in that program, and that still answers your like how this is a good match and what skills will you contribute. So these could be connected because it's also important to connect these connection questions to each other as well. Okay. Then recommendation letters. So what I will talk about is purpose of recommendation letters, uh, program specific, university specific. I'll explain what that means. And then what makes a recommendation letter strong? Because I said it multiple times that you need to have very strong recommendation letters. But the question is, how do you know that your recommendation letter is strong? Because you asked me that question that professors give you generic recommendation letters, and I have gotten so many generic recommendation letters from professors in which someone would write that he's very obedient, very much like dedicated to his work, he's a very hardworking student, and this and that, punctual and all that. And ask yourself again, can a normal person write that? Does it have to be a professor to write that kind of recommendation letter? So the answer is no, because that kind of letter elaborates that you have not put any effort into the recommendation letter, and you don't have any concrete example of what you have done in your bachelor's degree. So, so the fourth question is, what should the professor talk about in the letter? And then how do I get recommendation letters for each program I apply to? That's another very important, and I've gotten this question a million times from students that professors are not willing to write multiple recommendation letters. Let me see what I in the next slide. And okay, I can answer these here then. So I have tried to elaborate the purpose already. The purpose of recommendation letter is to kind of supplement what you are telling, the story you're telling in your application to the like hiring team. So how would that be supplemented? So that is kind of answered by the second thing, that these need to be very program specific and university specific. What this means is that, let me give you an example. What a lot of students do is they go to a professor, tell them I'm applying to this XYZ university and I need a recommendation letter. And they write a very generic recommendation letter, which says that this student is very obedient, this and that. And then in the end, they tell you that he's interested in applying. It would be very great if you could select this program student in the program. He could be a very good fit. There is no mention of which university you are applying to. There is no mention of which department you are applying to. There is no mention of what research you want to do. So that makes this recommendation letter weak. So how this recommendation letter should be written? It should be written like that. It should start with very clearly with your name that this person I have been a professor or supervisor or final year project supervisor of this person, and I have supervised this project, which is titled as fabrication of nanomaterial on this machine with this process, and then quote it. And then you tell them that during this project, he has worked on this machine and utilized the skill set gained in this course, and then after utilization, he gathered the data and interpreted and used this software to to generate plots results, and resultantly we published a paper on it. If you don't have not published a paper, it would be a lab project, and he submitted a report which was graded well. or you can say that it was graded excellent, it was A plus, and he got good grades as well. But if I just write he got very good grades, that's not a focus letter. You need to explain what that person has done, how he did it, and you might already have told that story in your SOP as well. So once the one person reads your SOP and then they say that it's already being verified by the other person who's telling your story for you, then that makes this recommendation letter strong. And then you also need to add the name of the university, that which this university, and I've also checked the website of that university, and you have a good program in mechanical engineering, and this facilities which are focused on this area, so he could be a good candidate for this program. Then that makes this recommendation letter very well aligned with your SOP, and then this will make your SOP strong, because this is actually supporting your SOP and lifting up your SOP. Similarly, this is one example, but you only have one advisor, so you can get one letter like that. How to the second? For the second one, you can just go to some professor whom you have good relations is willing to write that. Or let me do another thing. I talk about how to get those letters, but willing to submit that, you can write it on your own. But the second professor could be someone who you did a project with. This could be just a small project, not a 6 month long research or a year long research. That is your main advisor for a PhD project. But then if you have done just a small project, then just write about that project. Everyone has done that project. Because a lot of students have told me that I've not done projects. They don't recall they did those projects, because in a bachelor's degree you did very small things. Just highlight them and then explain a little more, make it a paragraph. That's good enough. And then similarly get a third one. A third one could also be, it could be a very good idea if you have practical experience or internship experience. You can go to that person and let them write that letter and mention that internship experience in your SOP as well. And that will support your experience as well. So this is how, when I got my recommendation letters, I was already working. So I got two recommendation letters from the people who I work with, my managers, and then one from my professor. So yeah.
Sir, these are all questions are associated with technical degree, like mechanical engineering, civil engineering. For me, social sciences, mass communication, I did. So during my degree, I used to work with a different private channel as a sports anchor, and I had a profile in my channel. So will I attach with these experience and these projects in my SOP, either instead of technical degree that they done the product projects, and that you mentioned you have done with tell that. So will I attach my references? I did my experience in private channel.
So even when you create a private channel, what the word I'm using is trying to use the word project. The reason is that projects could be in non-technical degrees as well. Creating a private channel could be a project as well. So you just explain that this is what I did. I created private channel, and whatever accomplishments you have, you just list those accomplishments in a sentence, and that's for you. You just did something and you explained it well, and then that should be good enough. But the question you need to ask yourself, what's the research component in that? So you need to be, I don't have specific example, how would you describe a research in that particular area? But you being an expert of your own area, you need to be able to find that research component. Because if you're applying for a PhD degree, you need to be able to elaborate research, whether you are technical or non-technical. Because even for qualitative sciences, you need to have good research skills, and there are softwares you use in qualitative sciences as well. Although being an engineering area in an engineering area, I'm on the more, we and some others as well. We are more on the quantitative side, but qualitative research is sometimes even more difficult and very different set of tools used for qualitative research as well. So you need to be able to have such kind of projects where you can demonstrate that, and you don't need papers. You just need to tell them that this is the work I have done, and then this is what I accomplished, how I accomplished, and there should be a few points in explain, and then go to project 2. and you don't need to attach pictures or anything like that. If you think that there is one thing or two that could be very extraordinary if they see a dashboard, if, for example, if you created a dashboard and that shows like the visualization and stuff, then you can add a link to that. Not really pictures, because you won't have that much space in a SOP. And once you have, like, if I go back to my previous slide, once you answer all these 15 questions for your SOP, it should be around 1.5 page with a 1.5 spacing, or maybe just single line spacing, with a font size of 11. You should not have more than 1.5 pages. So the very first block you create, that could be like 2 pages to 2.5 pages. So actually it should be 2.5 pages. But then what you do is, when you answer all those questions in my previous slide, you have 2.5 pages of like answers to these questions, and then you read that again, and then find out the clutter there. Every time you delete that clutter, connect sentences, the quality of your SOP will keep on improving. So you can start with 2.5 pages and bring it to 1.5, and once you're done, you should have a good focused SOP.
Is it necessary to highlight my research in this area, like war journalism? If I am interested to research in war journalism and investigative journalism, is it related to highlight these areas?
It depends. If what you are trying to do your PhD in is related to that kind of journalism, then for sure, yes, you will need to. But you don't really need to mention the words. You need to talk a little more specifically what exactly you have done, what kind of aspects you looked into, and what's the outcome, what were you thinking would be the result. So, or what results you got already. So those kinds of things you can explain. Yeah. But these are more of your major specific topics. And some of the answers I might not be able to give you because I'm not exactly in your major. But what I can explain to you is the process, how to do that. But I would encourage you to coordinate strongly with your advisor at the university or someone who has more experience in your domain. And once you write that SOP and answer my questions, then get it reviewed by that person. Not these questions, but the technical aspects of those answers. Then that should be a good idea to do that. More questions? Do you have one?
Clarified, I was there to ask that how to write second and third letter as one person can write, that's the PPT.
Sure, I'm getting there. So let me go through these FAQs and then let me see if I have answer here. I don't think so. Okay, I will go back. Yeah. So
Second last.
in the next slide,
Yes, second last.
can you send me a list of the universities? This one? I thought about this. I'll come back there. So another question. One of the biggest challenges to be able to do that, because doing this is difficult, I know. But what makes this more difficult and challenging is getting a recommendation letter, more than one recommendation letter from same professor, or during the same year getting recommendation letter from 3 professors multiple times, because whenever you apply, you might not do one application. You might, usually the suggestion is to apply at least 8 universities in 1 year, and usually you get like at least 1-2 funding offer letters if you apply into 8 universities. So if you want to apply to 8 universities, you need to have 20 recommendation letters. How to do that? And if you think you have even much more focused SRP and very good profile, you can even apply 4-5 universities as well. But that might put you in a little risk if you don't get awarded funding that year. But that's what I did, and I faced that multiple times. So I applied 2-3 universities, and my advisor was angry at me. Why did you do that? You should have targeted at least 6. So, and I waited another year, but I had already received an offer, so I thought they will give me funding, but that did not happen. That professor who agreed to supervise me was supposed to get funding that year. he did not get awarded his own funding, so he could not hire me. So the next year, he did not get funding again. So you should have more options so that doesn't happen to you. But trying to get into what I was trying to answer here. How to make sure that professors write recommendation letter for you? Don't expect them to write recommendation letters for you. They will not. So what you need to do is everything what I'm telling you, you need to do it on your own. You create your own reference letter, just like the professor would write it, and then that's not cheating. Let me tell you this. This is not cheating. This is not wrong. This is done all over the world. In US, I've done so many times with my professor. This is a widely accepted and the right way to do it. Because if you tell me to write a recommendation letter for you, I won't be able to really focus that much and spend hours on it. So the right way to do is that you write a recommendation letter yourself, and you already know yourself. Be honest about it and write those things which can supplement your SOP and still written in a uh, passive way, like that third person is telling about you, not really you telling about them. Because for the admission committee, it's the professor, not you. So you write the letter for them, and then once you have that draft, send that email to professor and tell them that, dear professor, I have written this letter. I've drafted this for you. Can you please read it and amend as you wish? Okay. They will not amend it. But this will give an acknowledgement that they have already accepted whatever you have written them for them. If they accept it and then send that letter themselves, this is a letter written and signed by them, not you. So this is an easy way, and most of the professors would be very happy and willing to just send an email or submit it. If you ask them to write a letter, they will give you a obedient letter, hardworking, and all those things, but not a focus letter. And they will not write a second letter for you because you should not, because you are wrong to do that.
I remember once I applied in the university and they had that provide the email of your professor. We want to connect with him, and I just provided them. And my professor used to tell me just write the letter for yourself. I write it down for him, and he sent to the university.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, because usually, yeah, there are two ways. Either they get an automated link where they can upload it, or they can just connect. They connect directly with the professor and they send an email to them. So either way is fine. Yeah, but you need to write that letter, and they should not expect them. And if you write that letter, then you can do all those five things because you will have time and energy. Because you are doing it for yourself, you can do it. Someone else will not do it for you. So next slide. Now I have very frequently asked questions. I'm already. I will try to wrap it up in 30 minutes, but then I will still stay a little more. If you have individual questions, then you can ask me. I have a funding part as well, but I will make it quick because we have focused already a lot on this part. So the first I've already answered. You can. If your GPA is low, you can still get admission, but you need to focus on all the points I've already outlined and make sure they all get check marked and focus on your SOP, your intent, and answer all those 15 questions in your SOP and then get there. My GPA is 3.5, but I cannot do GRE. You want, there's a big chance you might not be able to get into the program because GRE with the GRE, they one way to like once you do a GRE, they want to see whether you have certain capability, which is demonstrated through the test. But another thing that is being tested is your commitment to like your work. Because if you are trying to find shortcuts, that then most of the probability is that you might not do your GRE. So, and then your sample size would be very small. You might only be able to apply into like 200, 500 universities related to your major. So don't do that. Do GRE first. BS and MS degrees are in a different field from what I want to pursue in PhD. Can I get admission in a different PhD program? That's what I did. I had a mechanical engineering degree. I did my master's and PhD in architectural engineering, but it's not about the name of the name of the degree. It's about the focus area. You need to have the same focus or motivation to pursue a different focus and being able to elaborate that you can still do that. So then you can do that, and it's very well respected. It's not frowned upon.
I can skip my bachelor's degree and I was doing civil engineering and then I had diploma in 3 years. So is it possible?
That might not be possible right away. The reason is that the diploma is lower than a bachelor's degree. The credits, you need credits for a bachelor degree level program. So if you want to do a master's and you have a bachelor's degree already, there are some subjects you might have done in your non-technical degree as well, which may be transferable to a technical master's degree. I have seen people who have done a bachelor's degree in mathematics and then studying space sciences, or then done a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So how they do it is, if they have like 40 courses in the program that you should have done already, but the master's degree doesn't require all of them because that's a focus area. You just need to have a base for that focus area. So what they oftentimes that could be made possible. How that could be made possible, that's a very specific thing, and you might need to put effort into it. But you will need to approach them and tell them that my bachelor's degree is in this program, but I have like these prerequisites which I've already done in this degree, which could be which are similar to the mechanical or civil engineering degree. And what they would give you is a conditional admission or a provisional admission. What they will tell you is that you cannot start a master's program. They will require you, they will tell you these are 10 courses you need to do before you start the program, master's program. So this way you won't have to do a bachelor's degree again, but maybe do 10 courses, spend a year or 1.5 years, and then transfer into a master's program. So that's how a lot of people have done it. Yeah. But it's doable, but a little difficult. This is not even a science related area, scientific. It's not a technical area what you have done. So for you, it might be a little more even more and a little more difficult to convince the university that you can do that master's, but possible, not impossible. Yeah. More questions? Okay, then should I take ISA offer?
Apply same university, particular side, public administration, international relations, having same degree like mass communication. Should you apply in same university but a technical program?
If you really think that both programs are very specifically like focused on the same thing what you want to do, yes, you can do that because those two applications will go to two different departments. They might not even know that you have made these two applications, and even if they know, it might not matter. I have done that before. I've applied to the same university I mentioned, the Chester Institute of Technology. I have applied to their engineering PhD program, and they also had a sustainability PhD program. And they have same faculty working in both departments, having multiple appointments. And I had one faculty identified in one department and one faculty identified in another department. And they were supposed to be supervising the same PhD work, but just the department name was different. So I applied for both programs. Yeah. And I got selected as well. So yeah, no, they can't select you both. If they select you in both, then they will ask you will you want to continue in one. Yes, then you can choose one. But yes, it's true. And they both were within the same major department or maybe college. So where I applied, yeah, their faculty was same.
How do you find exact colleges and you mentioned writing the
Yeah, that's another question. It was online as well. So I kind of touched on that a little bit. That you need to find a list somewhere, or just Google it. List of US universities. If you are in engineering, just try to find a list of engineering universities. Non-engineering, whatever your major is, find a list of maybe 1,000 universities, 500 universities. This is a long process. You need to spend time on it. It can't be done. There is no shortcut to it. So then go to each university one by one, find out the programs you want to apply into, find out the faculty profiles, go to specific faculty websites and to read the research areas, and then shortlist one professor first. And don't send multiple emails because that whole committee will sit together and decide on an application. And if multiple professors have agreed on your application, if one professor tells the committee that this is my student, the other one tells the same, and the third one tells the same, there will be a conflict, and they'll know that this person is not serious and they have emailed multiple professors, they will reject your application. Don't do that. So,
Order the what should be done first and then second. I mean, first we have to search colleges and professors, then we have to mail them, then we apply to the formal website of the university.
yes, that should be a process. And in the end, I will just wrap it up again. Yeah. So should I take IELTS or TOEFL? Any of these, you can do that. Can I get admission in US university with full funding without GRE and IELTS? There may be some people who might have done it, but very difficult, so don't do that. I would recommend that you do both. Worst case, do IELTS. If you really know that no, I have so much options even without GRE, and the university rankings are good, because there is a good probability that you might get a full admission offer from a university which is very lowly ranked, and when you go for a visa interview, they might reject your visa, because if the university is a kind of university which is like not well reputed. So just take that into consideration. That could be a fact. I'm not saying that would happen. That could be that case, because I've heard some people telling me that this is what happened with them. Can you send me a list of universities from a program offering full scholarships? So these questions, these are very raw questions. I'm trying to give you examples of raw questions, because you need to have whenever you contact someone who is knowledgeable about it, you need to do your own homework and try to ask questions which are very focused on your own specific thing, not just generic questions like this, because this could be answered by your own search. Although I've talked all about this, but still try to focus on questions which are specifically focused to your situation rather than just generic. Because uh, no one will send you a list of universities offering full scholarships, because I don't know that. Your major might be different, your majors might be different, yours would be different. So no one knows 4,000 universities on its head. If you happen to be in a mechanical engineering or architectural engineering, I might be able to tell you a few universities I know of where based on the people I've met, but not for all majors. So just make sure you don't ask these kind of questions. You will need to make this list on your own, or just Google these and make sure you shortlist this and create your own list of universities which are related to your own major. What is the difference between personal statement, motivation letter, and statement of purpose? In US, usually you will say this to be called a statement of purpose. There is small difference, but what I've talked about is more like statement of purpose. In Europe, they call it more like motivation letter. Sometimes there are some universities in US which require you both, like personal statement and a statement of purpose. So as the name indicates, personal statements focus more on your personal aspects, the kind of life experience you have had which motivated you to do that. But they all three serve this kind of similar purpose. They tell a little bit about your how you developed as a person, what is your motivation, and what's your purpose to do that. Statement of purpose is also a way of saying motivation. What's your motivation? So all three of them are same, but just the difference in letter. When you write a motivation letter, usually when you say it a letter, it's usually a one-page letter. Statement of purpose is a bit longer, and if you have both, then that would be the same size, 1.5 pages. And sometimes university may also give you guidelines specific to their own requirement, that they need a half-page personal statement, one-page statement of purpose. So, but you can figure that out on your own. But majority would require statement of purpose.
So this is best for the proper RV used to university because for 2000 plus people talk about but tell us the process of getting admission in IB. Is a separate scholarship for them or what is the process?
So for masters and PhD, everywhere the process is same, which is what I'm already outlining. that you need to have. I talked about like application materials. That's all you need for that.
So this scholarship cover also give access to our the Ivy University like Harvard, Columbia, Pennsylvania.
I cannot comment on that because uh, I would use the word funding rather than scholarship because in US you don't get scholarships. Um, Majority of the times, the reason is they although it's kind of a scholarship, but it's not exactly a scholarship. The reason is I'll explain in my next slide. I'll answer your questions. I'm getting there. So that's my next topic, funding. So in US, I've already talked about application requirements and process. You need GRE, statement of purpose, application form, and other generic materials, ICRE. So once you have all that, that's part of your application. So once you submit that application, you are also considered for funding, not scholarships. There is also another terminology called fellowship. So they are all three different. Oftentimes for undergraduate studies, there may be scholarship available. Most of the time for internal applicants, for those who are US citizens, they may have their own funding programs through their own taxations, which may cover your like their tuition fees, which are scholarships. What you can get is not a scholarship; it's funding. When I say funding, what that means, let me go to next. There are three types of funding. That could be departmental funding, that could be project funding, or a fellowship funding. When I say departmental funding, when you submit now that we have already talked about application materials, you submit your application that goes to the committee, they select your application. Once you're selected, what they will do is they will ask about funding constitution. So the first two ways are the departmental funding is graduate teaching assistantship. They say that you are a PhD student or a master student. Majority of the time, PhD students get preference. So if you get selected as a PhD student, they will offer you teaching assistantship position, graduate teaching assistantship position. You will be expected to work 19.6 hours or 20 hours per week with the university, and the work would be like you will be like teaching a class, grading exam papers, creating assignments, grading like assignments as well. So and other instructional activities, or sometimes assisting in a lab or teaching a software or something that department wants. So that's a teaching assistantship position. So you will be working 20 hours, and in return of those 20 hours, you will get like a salary for that position. So first that there will be a salary. Second, they will remit all your tuition fees. Because you are working in the department, you are part of the department, they'll remit all your fees. So if you don't have to pay tuition fees, and then you're getting a salary. And as an employee, you are also entitled to health insurance. So they will pay, some universities might pay full health insurance, some may pay like 79-80% of your health insurance, and rest you will pay from your own salary. So that's departmental funding. In the state of Nebraska, where I was, they would give like $2,600. Right now it's $2,600, $2,500 per month. So which is considering Nebraska state is good enough to live comfortably. And I'll talk about a little bit of breakdown as well. The second one is project funding. So just as I explained, there could be certain projects that might be coming to your professor to solve a certain problem. And with that project, if your professor has gotten $1 million, $500,000 grant, they can hire a new student because they have that money to hire workforce. So they hire you, and then all that tuition fee, the department will not remit it. That tuition fee will be charged to your project budget. Your advisor will pay that tuition fee, and then your advisor will pay the same amount of salary to you as well, and then your advisor will pay the health insurance as well. So it's about the track. If you are hired as a teaching assistant, then the same money is paid through department. If you're hired as a project on a project, then the money comes from the project. Sometimes there may be, I'll take your question, just give me a minute. Sometimes there may be additional funding called a fellowship amount. This is reserved for only the topmost applicants. So, for example, you're a student who got admission in Harvard, who got admission in top 5 universities, let's say, at the same time, and the universities want the topmost student to be recruited in their university. They want to attract you, so they will give you this first one of the two fundings, and then they say we'll give you a $4,000 or $8,000 fellowship on top of that funding. So you will be working with them and got some additional money as a as a scholarship, like a scholarship, but it's called a fellowship. So that to attract talent. Sometimes they may also have another way. They will not require you to work on that in the department or the project. So usually you need to work, but they say that for the first year you are a fellowship. So you won't have to work, but you will still get the money, like a scholarship. So that is the fellowship funding, but that doesn't continue through all 4 years because in US, project work and departmental work, teaching assistantship and research assistantship are integral part of your research training. So you need to, when you are doing a PhD, you are becoming a presenter, speaker, professor. So you need to be able to speak in front of public. You need to be able to teach people, and you need to be able to conduct research. So you need to go through those experiences to learn that, get that PhD experience. So that's why they will not give you fellowship funding for the whole part. Maximum, I think they will give you for 1 year if you are a very brilliant. Otherwise, you still have to work for like 4 or 5, 6 years of your PhD through all three types of funding. So the third one is like the project funding plus additional fellowship. That's the fourth part, but that's a combination of first two. Major are the first three. Now I'll get your question.
The range of items companies that like a general
It varies university to university and state to state. But I can give you an idea for Nebraska State, where I graduated from. The tuition fee per semester would be around, say, $15,000 for 9 to 12 credits, which is the general coursework, $15,000 per 6 months for per semester.
Yes.
So you will have 2 semesters if you don't do the summer. So 30,000, and then you will be paid at about 30,000 per year living expense. So it will be 30 and 30, $60,000. And then if you don't have these opportunities, then you'll need to pay health insurance as well. Maybe $2,000-3,000 for health insurance, or even more, I think. Let's say five. So $65,000 is like a expense, per year expense in Nebraska State, which is a cheaper, on the cheaper side. If you go into the other universities on the side of the US side, not in the central, then that could be 100,000 as well per year. So
and getting admission is, I think, a very important thing to get admission because I have got admission in many 2 or 3 European universities in Hungary and in Poland, but I couldn't get the visa. The visa process of for Pakistani is very hard.
where, for US or for European countries?
I am giving the example that I have got admission of the bachelor's in Poland and Hungary. So, but I can't get the visa. So my all documents were full. They required the documents and I gave them all. But they reject my visa asking that your progress is not clear. So
Okay.
how can we tackle these?
I cannot comment about European countries because this presentation is with USCFP. Yeah, I'm getting to your point.
So if European countries are not getting
No, actually, they might have different requirements from US. Their internal criteria might be a bit different. But if they are telling you that your purpose is not clear, then they might be like not really confident on why you really are trying to get there. So there is something wrong with your documentation, I think.
So I just had a perception that the US embassy was on the processing of these.
That's not true. Yeah. I personally think US visa is easiest to get. If you have the right documentation, you are providing everything the way they are, you get the visa.
So, the tell me that I got admission in Florida, and he went to giving his interview, and they asked me, "Are you going to join a terrorist organization, or you have sent any links and these sort of things?" So I think it's interview is very tough, and they
Did he get it or not? No. They might have a reason. They might have a reason to do that suspicion, or sometimes, yeah, I can't really comment on that without knowing the full case, what really happened. But uh, from what my experience is, and not just from the visa perspective, just from the whole US experience I've had in the 4 years, 5 years I've been in US, if you have all the right documentation and if you provide everything, then I think they just said, okay, yeah, I don't think there should be an issue. Yeah.
Very clear in my mind, but they are very afraid to fear after 9/11. So is it possible?
I had a beard when I applied for a visa.
Yeah.
So I still have a little bit, but I had a bigger beard when I applied for a visa. That did not affect me, and I had not been to any country in the world before going to US. That was the first visa I got, and I have seen so many others who have gotten their first visas in US. So I don't think that is the issue.
Yes.
Usually, what I think is, oftentimes they would ask you different. I'm not the right person to comment on that. I'm just giving my perception, but this could be wrong. But what I'm telling you is, I think the major focus of all that decision making is the documentation. Before you even go to the visa permit, I think uh, some part of that decision has already been made, because they check all your documents, what you have done, what you have required, and you need to be able to convince them that you really are going for a study visa, to study there. And oftentimes, what I've noticed is this kind of issue arises with those who do not have funding, because it is considered, if you are self-funding, sometimes the intention may not be that clear. So usually if you are on a scholarship or something, that's very clear that you're a brilliant student and you have gotten a scholarship there, and then you can go there.
But if our admission is confirmed, then embassy can cover visa or not?
It's a decision of the embassy. I cannot really comment on all that. Sorry.
So I can give you some insight to visa. As far as visa is concerned, I don't think we need to really worry about that aspect right now, because first we have to apply, get ready to complete this and whatnot. When the time comes to visas, I'm more than happy, because I sent everybody an email for the also. So you all would have received my email address. It's command and just get just reach out to me, and when that day comes, or when you're applying for visa, I think we'll have.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
really worry about. And as you said, if you have got funding, most students get their visas. Yes, some students get put into processing, but
And I personally got into administrative processing and for 1 month, and then I got my visa. I don't think there is any problem with that.
So now after the Trump has cut the budget of Harvard and we but is there less chance for
I think the budgets will still continue because there's a lot of research going on in all the universities, and there may be some change in priorities in certain domains, but you need to figure out what area exactly you are wanting to pursue and what's the funding situation in that, and make your decision accordingly. Yeah.
so when you go to America to for the 2050 US, uh, they've changed their priorities, like, and I think like, so, really, something like that. Look at all the topics. I think you have a better chance of getting more funding also. And maybe also look at Midwest, at the Midwest, like Nebraska, the space with not for Pakistani to go, the leaders of the not for Pakistani to, or not just Pakistani, international students tend to gravitate towards either like New York, New Jersey, Houston, like Texas, Florida, these places. But the truth of the matter is that universities have funding to give. Not looking to win quite a lot of literacy. Who cares what you say? American education is pretty up there, I myself am American educated, and it doesn't matter which university, they're all bad. Even the community college is different.
Yep.
The facilities that are far superior to our academic. So look at the Midwest University. For example.
So departmental funding covers all and due to old age.
Yes, most of the time you get your funding for the duration of the PhD program that's written on your admission offer. So, but this is also extendable. Sometimes if your project is not completed in that time, your advisor may have funding. Sometimes they may not have funding, and you may lose funding earlier as well. But usually they help out and be a little more flexible with the student to provide them funding for the whole duration of the program.
While we choose or they to jump in, I think, which teaching based or research based. It is depends on our choice.
No, it does not. The reason is that it depends upon where funding is available. Usually, departmental funding is awarded for I think a maximum of 2 years. University policies may differ, but usually that's available for 2 years. So once you are hired, if if your professor doesn't have project funding right away, then you are hired on a departmental funding. And whenever your professor get funding, then they may shift you onto the project funding for whatever period they have that. And once they don't have the funding that anymore, some professors have funding throughout the time, then you could be on project all the time. But if they don't have more funding, then for some other semesters you may be on departmental funding. But usually there is a cap on departmental, because departmental money comes through the university tuition fee, and they want to be make sure that they have enough money to be able to support you whenever they insert a project funding.
It mentioned on the industry website.
No. No details are not mentioned. It's usually the decision of the department what they want to award you. Yeah, whatever they offer you, you need to accept that. Yeah. What I would say is both experiences are very valuable. So a lot of times, even if professor has funding for full 4 or 5 years of your, they might still not give you full 4 years of funding on project. They still want you to have some teaching experience, so you are more well-rounded when you become a professor. You already know how to handle a class, teach a class in American, even in American way, not in a Pakistani way. So you need to get that experience. So this I already talked about. This is also we have already discussed. There is another opportunity. This is called a graduate assistant position. The other two I talked about, departmental funding is graduate teaching assistantship. Project funding is graduate research assistantship. And sometimes if both are not available, and oftentimes if both are given to a PhD student and you are a master student, so if there is still funding left, they might still give you a research assistantship position. But if both are not available, there are certain positions available within the university where you can work with the university. These are paid lesser than the research and teaching assistantship position, but they are, for temporarily you can still get some money. And you don't get tuition coverage with these, because these are not with the department. So you don't get tuition benefits, you don't get health insurance, but you get paid hourly to be able to meet up some of your expenses.
The teaching based research is also given EAT, not for master.
These are associated with graduate studies, but the preference is PhD applicants. So once our department has given funding to a PhD student, if they still have more funding available, then they may give it to master student. Or if they don't have a PhD student in the department and someone applies for a master's and the funding is available, then they may still give you that funding as a master student, but they are not bound to give you funding as a master student. But for PhD, when you get an admission letter, it is automatically expected that you will get funding as well.
Only for PhD.
For PhD, yes, automatically expected, but not always awarded. Sometimes there may be a possibility that your advisor or department may not have funding, so you may still have to wait until the funding opportunity comes up, or you might have to pursue other options because you cannot do a PhD without funding.
If they have no funding, then we all self got admission.
Then you may still have admission, but you need to be able to demonstrate all that funding to get that visa as well. Yeah. So whatever amount is written on the university thinks that that's the amount you need for a living expense, for tuition fee and everything, they will put it on your I-20. And whatever is written on your I-20, you need to be able to demonstrate that funding amount to get that visa as well. So if you don't have that funding and have a funding letter that says that tuition fee is covered and this is the stipend, and that's above that I-20 amount, that's a proof that you will have that funding for the whole year. Then you don't need to show your own funding. Yeah. More questions? Okay, this are more opportunities for off-campus work as well, because whatever I've talked about, these are on-campus opportunities. You are not allowed to work off-campus during the academic year and also during the first year in US. But these off-campus opportunities are available once you become a student, not when you're here. So once you are a student, in the summers you can pursue summer internships full-time even. And also, once you complete the program, then there is benefit of F1 visa that you can get optional practical training for up to 3 years, which you need to apply for the first year and then extend it for the next 2 years as well. I will not discuss it more details because this is more about how to get there. This is for a later stage. And how to get funding is usually you contact graduate chair and ask them if there is departmental funding available, or sometimes if you contact the professor directly, then you can discuss that funding. If once they are willing to advise you, you can ask them if funding is available and stuff. And oftentimes if they have available, they will only agree to advise you in most of the cases if they have funding available. If they don't, they might not. So
Then before that, plan admission.
Actually, when you go to the university website and read the process, they will not right away tell you that this is the process, because the official process is just to apply, and then they will see your application and then award like admission reporting. But this is a common route, not said by the university, but very well commonly done, that you contact the professor beforehand and then talk about these things. Some universities may not let you do that. Some professors will tell you that we are not allowed to, but in most cases in US, it's allowed.
Is it any application fee in university?
Yes, most of the universities have an application fee to submit an application, which could range from like $50 or up to $100 or something, but that varies from university to university. And there may be a possibility that if you can elaborate, sometimes some universities give application fee waivers if you go to different seminars and stuff. And sometimes they will waive you based on your financial circumstances as well. So yeah, but I would suggest that don't request that. If they give it out for free anyways, then you can take that. But usually, if you really have a need, then only just explain that need after getting like kind of a yes from the professor, and then explain that you have a genuine need and there is so much currency difference that you are facing this hardship and can't do the application fee. So I have seen that happening in my university. They have a procedure that you submit a financial hardship form or something, whatever they require, and then they waive off that fee. So yeah, so getting funding could be a first or a last step. First step, if you approach the professor right away before even applying. And the last step in the case when you submit the application first, and then you get admission, and then they consider you automatically for funding. So this could be done either way. But I would suggest that contact the professor beforehand, before even applying to the university. This way, if you have, once you have agreement with the professor and 5 professors are willing to advise you in different universities, then you already have a higher chance and less chance of wasting those application fees in different universities. So that could help you. So priority deadlines are usually in fall and spring. There are usually lesser admissions in summer, but I would still say anytime is possible. So depending on your timelines, you can apply anytime. Yeah. This is a sample email. This is what I sent to my advisor because I know everyone should see this. No one shows that. So, so this is what I wrote that my name is this. I'm a graduate of BSc Mechanical Engineering from Pakistan. I did not even write the name of the university I studied from because she might not know it, my my advisor. So, although she made the administrative department check my university ranking and stuff, some professors might not do that, some might do that. So yeah, so that is just a reference for you. You don't necessarily have to write the same email. So what I wrote that here is that I graduated from this, and I've been working at here as this in this position, and what I've been working on, and you can read this email. And then I've talked about my interest in what areas I'm interested in, and then what I'm to do. And you just ask them that if they would be willing to advise you or not. That's what I did. You should not ask, will you fund me in the very first email? If they say yes, they automatically know that they have to fund you. So don't ask them about funding. And this, I was already getting a funding from HEC at the time, so that's why I mentioned that there is a good possibility that I will get the funding from HEC. But if there is possibility, then consider me for the university funding as well. So, and the response I got was the very first response I got was that your interests very well aligned with my interests, and then she talked about my experiences as well, and then offered me that she already have both fundings, departmental and research fundings available. And I sent that email, and then in 15 minutes I got a response. I was already late in that application cycle when I applied. I applied in, I believe, March 23rd, 2021. And at the time, for the fall application cycle, I had already closed or almost close to closing because the 30th March was the deadline for without funding consideration. But somehow she got her funding late and she had that funding available. So I just contacted at the right time and then things worked out. So what I'm trying to suggest here is just make it brief, try to explain what you've done, what your interests are, what your experience is, and then explain your intention. And attachments you should like attach, like you should tell about your like educational qualifications. An easy way to do it is attach your CV. So that will also explain the practical experience. And then I will attach like some of the like I attach my GRE score report and the bachelor's degree, IELTS certificate, my bachelor's transcripts, and the last one on the second row is my job description as a mechanical engineer here. And that was exactly what I wanted to do in my PhD. So there was an alignment of interest. And then second last on the second row is my membership certificate in a society I was active in, and that society is the most reputed society actually in my domain. So she valued that very much. And one of the trainings I attached here, I got that training. And after a few years in one of the class I studied with her, she mentioned that this was my PhD dissertation, the training I had gotten. So I think that was the most strongest point for her because that was her advisor's specialty and her PhD dissertation. And when I attended that 1 hour training, that she valued that very much. So what I'm trying to suggest here is try to attach your CV, whatever degrees you have, just attach those and transcripts so that they can get a sense of what you have done in your coursework. And then attach IELTS CRE if you want to, or just mention them in the email, and then attach relevant certificates, trainings, or seminars or presentations you have given, only the relevant ones to that position. Don't attach everything because that would distract them and they will not understand what you're trying to do.
When this test during application or before?
This is a sample email. When you send them an email, this is everything is done before you put that application in. Yeah. So you contact them, write that email, add these attachments, and send that email. Sorry?
Part of email.
Yes, these are email attachments. So I've already talked about it, like what the funding covers. And then this is just a typical breakdown of a PhD finances. If you're getting 2,500 a month, and what you'll save, what you'll spend, where you'll spend. You'll save a little bit, but don't expect that you'll save your whole salary. But yeah, but with the amount you'll get as a PhD student, most PhD students are able to live very relaxed with whatever they are getting, and they are able to save some money as well. You can afford your own car and uh, because you'll be paid health insurance automatically. If you're in good health, you won't be paying much for stuff on like your health bills and everything. So what you have is rent, electricity, utilities, food. You need to pay taxes and also student fees for the university. And then car, if you have a car, then you have to pay car insurance and fuel, and then miscellaneous.
These are paid directly by the university or we.
No, the universe, you will pay but chances are right. This is what you will typically plan to spend in 1 month. So this is what you will be paying. University will pay your tuition fee. Yes, and then they will give the stipend. This is the income in blue. Yes, so this is just an example number from Nebraska. So 2,500 is typically what they pay. Right now it's 2,600. When I went there, they will pay me 2,300 in the month. They keep increasing every year a little bit. So yeah,
Is it married and can be.
yes. Yeah, you can apply for an F2 visa, which is a dependent of F1, and then but you manage within the same budget you are given. So if you think you can, a lot of students can do that. Yeah, with one spouse, you can still live in US. Yeah, if you have more funding related questions, I'm willing to answer. And then that's the end of my presentation.
With spouse, there's any chance to increase I mean, expenditures.
Yes, for sure. Yes, you will need to elaborate additional expenses on your own for your spouse. I think it's 5,100 per year for a spouse. If you don't have another dependent, for one dependent is like 5,000. Yeah. Yeah, that's. I can share these slides with Aman, and then he should be happy to share these. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation, and I can take more questions if there are any online. Yes.
Actually, I'm doing PhD. My area is material science.
Okay.
Involves that don't have enough facilities or what if I ask to some professor or a university or some platform, if you know a very good platform, where I first look at which professor and this website. So if you have this information that on that platform, where I can search for the professors who are working in both my interest in then that I want to come for some particular time, let's say 2 months, or you can say it can be summer internship.
Yeah, I think what you're suggesting is an exchange program. So I have seen people doing it, but I don't really know the specifics of how that works. But this is possible. You usually go on a J1 visa to do an exchange research for a semester or 2 semesters, and then come back to you use those facilities. So I think that conversation could start by connecting to the professor, and I will not have any information for your major about a lab or a specific facility in US because I'm from a very different major. And so you might need to do a search online and find out universities in material science, and or maybe find a resource of for connect with someone who has already done that and seek guidance from them.
Which is possible.
Yes, I've seen. I don't have an example from Pakistan, but I've seen other people coming from Europe to US. But the procedure should be the same. And in that case, what I've seen is that person went on her own funding to US. So they did that. The professor in US did not fund it in that particular case, but I don't know about other cases. Yeah, so she already had her scholarship in Europe. She utilized the scholarship, but I don't think she had to pay tuition fee because she did not take any coursework during the PhD. She just did research, but the professor allowed her to like stay there for a semester and then or a short period of time and conduct research and publish together.
Before sending email, we should have GRE test.
I would advise that you do GRE first before you start this process, or at least do both simultaneously, so that once you have a conversation going, you have your materials ready and ready to submit an application. Yeah, I think that's all for the presentation.
This is one question.
Yeah, I think the last one that I can do.
For this one,
Yeah.
this one is earlier.
Okay. I can.
These are the
Introduction. Yeah, we tried that.
maybe you can ask these three people if they want, if they have a question. Sonia.
Yeah, so for the attendees who are online, if you have questions, you can send that in the chat box and I can answer those questions.
Have in the chats.
Do we have Q&A? Yeah, if you can send in the Q&A section. Yeah, I'll try to answer this one. What I-score will be required for the PhD. Usually that's minimum in general is 6.5 overall, but that IELTS needs to be balanced and you need to have that 6.5 at least in each section. Yeah. About the second question is, can I be selected for exchange program if I have to do my last semester from abroad? Yeah, that's a very specific to exchange. I don't have much information about the exchange program. You might need to contact the professor you are interested in working with and discuss this specific detail with them. Or maybe I wonder if USCFP advising may be able to help with this exchange question. Second one.
I can, if they can just email me.
Yeah. Okay, if you can email this question to USCFP advising, then they may be able to.
Hi, my name is Aman. I sent an email earlier today about the online session. So if you just respond back to that email and ask me for whatever question that you have regarding exchange, I can assist you with that.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. And if you need a copy of this presentation, you'd have to email me to ask for it, please. Thank you.
And आपको maybe आपको हम email पे भेजिए ना, अगर आपको presentation चाहिए तो please send me an email request. उसी email का जवाब में देंगे presentation में. तो मैं सबको भेजना नहीं चाह रहा, because it's like 120 people registered, but I only want to send it to those who showed up.
Sure. Okay.
This email का respond back करते हैं.
And
यहाँ पे अपना email address भी देख लीजिए. आप लोग बच्चे
if anyone have more questions, I can discuss for a few more minutes.
When we apply, so we should apply only for PhD, but for scholarship, not scholarship, I mean, departmental funding or another funding. We should apply for PhD, not for master.
That's what I did. Because if you apply for a master's program, there is a chance that you may be able to get funding in a master's program, but oftentimes that funding doesn't fully cover everything. So usually PhDs are fully funded. So yes, but that should not be the only reason for applying to PhD. You need to make sure that you want to do a PhD and be able to survive and complete the PhD program itself. So you have to make that decision first, and if you really decide that you want have that passion for research and you want to do a PhD, then do that. Otherwise, take time to do a master's. Okay, this is the end of the presentation. If you have any further question, you can email the advising team, and then I would be happy to answer more. Thank you very much.